Hello, Seiiti Arata. Your biggest enemy is time. If you want to learn something, the limiting factor is the time available to do so. Just think about it. If you are in college, for example, and each subject gives you a huge syllabus for the exams, you know that the amount of time is too short for the amount of information that you need to absorb. But is it feasible to accelerate your learning? The answer is yes, as long as you use the right techniques. There are many techniques that we will teach you within the Intelligence Arata Academy training, including practical activities that you can do, recording videos demonstrating what you have learned, and receiving feedback, individualized feedback from us. For the complete training, you can visit arata.se/intelligence. But at a minimum, you need to master 4 techniques. 1. Beginner's mind. 2. Active study. 3. Emotional state control. And 4. Definement technique. Let's get into the details of each of these techniques so you can master accelerated learning. Forget about what you know about learning. There are much more efficient ways to absorb information. The worst attitude that you can have when you need to learn something is arrogance. Students who are humble, they're curious, they're open-minded to absorb new knowledge. Now, the arrogant people, they're the ones who just want to identify the information that they already heard of, and then they say, oh, yeah, I already know that. Their focus is on identifying just some keywords that they've heard before, so that makes them feel good. This is an ego trap. Just think rationally. You're not studying to prove to yourself that you already know the subject. You need to keep a close eye on what you don't know yet. It is necessary that you're humble to recognize that there is so much more that you still don't know. Therefore, the first step is forget what you know about learning and about the subject that you want to learn. Use a beginner's mind. When you're studying a subject that you need to learn fast, ignore what you already know. Look at that content as if you're seeing it for the first time. Also ignore the distractions. When you're studying, forget the news that you've heard on television, the photos you've seen on social media, the gossip you heard in the classroom. Just focus on learning the new content. This kind of focus is essential for accelerated learning. Distractions divide your mind into more than one task, and that limits the amount of information that you can absorb in just one study session. Speaking of limitations, also ignore the labels that might exist about you and your learning ability. If you've ever been called, distracted, unmotivated, lazy, unintelligent, forget about it. Just keep going. You can exceed expectations as long as you become active in your studies. Active studying is the most efficient way to accelerate your learning. What happens in a class when the teacher talks for hours and hours and the class just passively watches? Students suddenly start to get distracted. They do everything but learn. Likewise, when you study by passively reading a book or watching a video lecture or rereading your notes, your learning level is low. Our brain learns best when it actively participates in content creation, when it's being challenged. Study techniques that give more results are active, such as solving exercises, creating summaries, or even the technique of explaining to other people what you have learned. That is why in the Arata Academy trainings, you always have interactive activities that you have to do. It is no use just passively binge watch videos. You need to have some tasks, important tasks, to complete. That is the only way that you can actually learn. When you do an activity, you actively participate in the study. You're putting your brain to work. And here, distraction has no place. You have to stay attentive. You have to be focused on the content. So the next time you have a study session, make sure that you always engage in active learning. If you're in the classroom, ask the teacher some questions. Take notes with using your own words. Do some creative mind maps. When you are at home, do exercises, put what you learned into practice. Explain the content to others or just record a video to yourself. Just avoid passively looking at a book or video or the teacher. Put emotion into your studies. Information absorbed in the right state of mind stays in your memory for a long time. Do you know why storytelling is one of the most effective forms of teaching? Because it involves emotion. A model can be spending hours and hours explaining the importance of responsibility and hard work to a young child, but children are likely to learn these concepts faster by listening to a story, for example, the story of the 3 little pigs. When the big bad wolf fails to destroy the brick house, and then the little pigs are saved, the child feels some relief. They learn with emotion the job of a job well done. All information combined with emotion has greater impact on your memory because it's much better than just pure rational simple information. Think back to a class where your professor imparted some information coldly, without emotion. Do you remember what you learned? Now, think of a remarkable movie that you saw 5 years ago. How many details do you still remember about that story? When there is no emotion, there is boredom. And when you get bored, you get distracted. You don't get involved with studying, and the last thing you want to do is to study. If you want to learn quickly, control your emotional state, even if the teacher is boring, or the subject is boring, or the book is poorly written. Take control of your learning so you can add excitement. If the subject is boring, look for a way to make the subject more exciting, create real situations, practical applications, or even absurd stories. Everything that generates enthusiasm for you to learn will make your study more active and generate better results. Even if the teacher is mediocre, you have the power to make the subject more attractive. Sharpen your curiosity and your enthusiasm to learn, even if it's just to get the grade that you need to pass the year. Children learn quickly, and do you know what the secret is? Children are in a permanent emotional state of curiosity, a desire to know more, to understand how the world works. If you can bring some of that attitude to your emotional state, you can learn anything with an amazing speed. Teaching is the best way to learn because it mixes all the necessary ingredients for good learning. Have you ever heard that teaching is the best way to learn? That is true. When you're going to teach something, you have to use all the 3 ingredients of accelerated learning that you just saw here, we just explained to you. First, you have to use a beginner's mind, so then you can see the content as if you were a new student. Second, you have to actively create a plan for structuring the content. Third, when you try to teach something, you become emotionally involved. You become curious as to whether the other person is actually learning or not. We already talked about the Feynman technique here in our channel. That was episode number 14 of Seiiti Arata series. This technique involves 4 simple steps for accelerated learning and was created by Richard Feynman, the winner of the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1965. First, you have to choose the subject that you want to learn. Then, you explain the chosen subject as if you were teaching a young child. Third, you get feedback to identify the gaps in the understanding. And fourth, you review, you simplify what you've learned. If you don't have a child or someone else to listen to, you can just record a video using your mobile phone teaching the subject. You can save this video just for you to be watching by yourself later and identify the points that were not very well explained, or you could even go further. You could publish this video on your social networks and collect people's feedback. These are just a few ideas. The important thing here is to realize that when you're teaching something, you're forced to use all the components of accelerated learning. You use a beginner's mind, you're going to have active study, and you're also going to have a right emotional state. Everything all in a natural way. Using these techniques often, you'll soon be able to learn anything in half of the time. If you need to learn a lot of content in a short period of time, the solution is to master the accelerated learning techniques. Today you've seen 4 techniques: beginner's mind, active study, emotional state, and also teaching as a way of learning. But of course, there are other ways for you to increase your intelligence levels, and for that reason now I want to invite you to explore the Intelligence Arata Academy project by visiting the address arata.se/intelligence.